So I will go ahead and get started. Like I said, good, welcome everybody. Thank you so much for joining me. Thank you for your interest in the Gold Initiative. I'm probably talked to some of you before, but this might be my first time meeting many of you. So I really appreciate it. I'm excited to get to know you all a little bit better. But I'll start by sharing my presentation, just showing my beautiful headshot. So my name's Kelsey Cleland. I'm program director for the Gold Initiative. I have been for many years now. I started in 2017, 2018, and have always been on program, and I've just seen this program uh, expedited growth over the past 8 years. It's been really incredible, geographical expansion, but the sheer number of scholars. When I first started, there was maybe 10 Goldie scholars in the cohort, and now there's 38, and we're looking at 40 next year, which is really exciting. So I'm going to go through this. My agenda is kind of to talk about the Gold Initiative itself, give you an overview, give you my spiel about who we are, what we do, as well as some of a program overview. There's so many names in here, but I hope that Linda Humphrey, a current Goldie Scholar, joins at some point so she can chime in with her perspective. Um, and then we'll talk about how to actually apply. And I will stay and answer any and all questions you might have. And hopefully that will take an hour. That's where we are. I'll start with our mission, which is that the Gold Initiative prepares women to advance as leaders in commercial real estate by providing financial and professional support. Simple to the point. We prepare women to advance in commercial real estate. This is the name of the game for us. This is a bit of a brief overview of who we are. We're founded by Goldie B. Wolfe Miller, who was the first female vice president of Arthur Rubloff and Company. After rising the ranks at Arthur Rubloff, she went and founded her own company, a tenant rep firm, and developed it to be the largest woman-owned commercial real estate company at the time, with 3 billion in transactions. So she really crashed a lot of glass ceilings in the 70s, 80s, and 90s, and then in 2000s, she wanted to give back and she thought about what was important to her. Commercial real estate, the industry that she loved so much and that supported her so much. She wanted to support women and she wanted to get them to the corner office. So, with those three goals in mind, she went to her alma mater, Roosevelt University, and they helped her craft a program that's very similar to what it is today. I describe it as having four pillars: the scholarship, mentorship, leadership development, and networking. And it's been that way since 2007. Um, in 2015, they became their own 501(c)(3, went outside of Roosevelt. There was a lot of demand. So all of a sudden, we're at other universities in Chicago, and University of Wisconsin. In 2017, they did a 10-year anniversary party, the Goldie Gala, and that also really helped fuel our success. It was very successful, and Goldie didn't want to have another sit-down chicken dinner event, so she made networking on steroids the theme of her Goldie Gala, which the industry loves. And yeah, then we started a Shiro Award. Over the past 5 years, we have expanded dramatically into other states. So now we focus on the Midwest universities and universities in the Northeast Mid-Atlantic area. Um, my chart doesn't keep going, but we're at almost 200 total Goldie Scholars. And as you can imagine, that number continues to grow quickly of our alumni. This is a quick snapshot of, I think, all of the universities we're at. At this point, I feel like I'm always going to forget somebody off the list. This is not a list that you have to go to one of these universities. Every year we add more universities, but you can kind of get the gist of where we've been before, the full gamut of universities, I'd say. I want to hit on program eligibility early in case you find out when I'm talking that you're actually not eligible. But so Gold Initiative, Gold Scholars are for women only. It's all merit-based, not dependent on financial need. You need a bachelor's degree from an accredited university. Must live full-time in the select list of states in the Midwest and the Northeast. I'll get that to that shortly. And you have to be enrolled in graduate school, or you're about to be enrolled in graduate school. Um, it's It's for graduate students only. So there's some hybrid, some virtual events, some in-person events. We're really trying to focus on more in-person elements in the Northeast. That's been our past goal for the past 2 years. As you might have seen on the website, we do recommend having 3 years of commercial real estate experience at least. It's recommended, not mandatory. So there have definitely been scholars who, if you will, like sell themselves. They sell their experience, they sell their internships and their student groups and whatever it might be to come up with that experience or, talk about transferable skills. But I think having 3 years is a good rule of thumb. And then minimum 1 year left in grad school. So if you're graduating, let's say next December 2025, you're not going to be eligible. We want you to be in your program for at least one more year. So hopefully graduating next spring. You can be in the Goldie Scholar program for 1 or 2 years. So if you have 2 years left, if you're a law student, you have 3 years, you can be in the program, the Goldie Scholar program for up to 2 years. It's $7,500 per year. So if you're in it for 1 year, you get 7,500. If you're in for 2 years, you get 15,000 distributed over 2 years in September. This is an overview of the location. So in recent years, we have reduced eligibility. So we want you to be living full-time in one of these states while you're doing your graduate degree. Hypothetically, you could be living in Chicago doing a UCLA online program, but the goal is that you can attend um, our in-person programs. We have a huge focus on networking. We really value networking. We value in-person connections with your mentors, and we decided that we would reduce eligibility based on where you live to these states. Okay, so now for some of the fun part, I'm sure many of you know at least a little bit about the Goldie Initiative so far, but I'll give you my rundown of what comes with being a Goldie Scholar. And as I mentioned, scholarship is at the base. You have to be in grad school, $7,500 per year, pretty nice. But what a lot of people, the most valuable thing they get out of it is having a personal mentor. Every Goldie Scholar is assigned a one-on-one mentor. We do this by surveying you after you get the scholarship, saying, what are your dream companies? Who are your idols? What kind of mentor? What are your goals? What are your short-term goals? What would you like to get out of it? Are you trying to do in person or virtual? And we take all that information. We look at your goals in your sub-industry and we try to match you as best we can with someone in our network who will invest in you over the course of 1 or 2 years that you're in the program. That's our main primary mentor program, which is really incredible, very special. We have other mentoring programs that are more like almost like speed networking kind of things. We have a full online community where you can go on, you can log in. There's a full list of people that would be happy to connect with you, and you have access to that anytime. So if you want to find somebody in law or in development or in wherever you're interested in other areas that maybe you wouldn't have a full-time mentor per se, but that kind of mentoring is available to you. There's also Wednesdays with Goldie. Goldie has a call with every single Goldie Scholar on Wednesdays, as you can imagine, where you can talk to her about whatever you want, ask her any question, and she will give you her completely unfiltered advice because that is the way Goldie lives and breathes. Um, Networking, like I said, huge part of what we do. We have our own networking events, our own leadership development events, but then we also partner with media companies that throw lots of conferences and things like that. So we get free tickets that we pass along to Goldie Scholars. Um, and yeah, we're just very in touch with lots of different events going on. And we also have a budget for each Goldie Scholar to spend on a membership organization to encourage more networking. It's just, it all is reinforced. Goldie Scholars have the budget to spend on networking. They have the budget to spend on traveling for networking, to traveling to the Goldie Gala, travel to our events in Chicago. That's really, really important, especially as we expand to the Northeast. Um, Leadership development throughout the year. We have a couple main events that are like day-long activities. We do panels, we do breakout groups. You get to bond as a cohort, but you also get to network with our wider group of mentors. And we talk a lot about personal brand and executive presence, negotiation, advocating for yourself, a lot of soft skills that come up that are just good to be reinforced over the course of the year. I currently do one-on-one individual coaching sessions with all Goldie scholars, and we go through your goals, what your brand is, what it could be, what your LinkedIn is, etc., which is a really productive time too. We have a connection to job opportunities. This isn't, I'd say, it's not like going through the Gold Initiative. It's not a job placement program by any means. We know a lot of people who are posting jobs. We have our own job board. And that is just something that if you're able to work the network, then it can go really far. Um, Before I move on, does anyone have questions about the program or the eligibility, anything I've said so far? Okay, I'll keep going then. Feel free at any time to come off mute or I should say to put in the chat if you have questions. I will probably field it, but my coworkers on the call can also flag it for me and I can answer it at the end. Um, is Linda Humphrey on the call is the question. Linda, are you there? Let's
I
see.
don't see her
I
listed.
don't see her either, which is strange. So, um, maybe
I
she'll
do
be
believe you have one question.
okay. Um, can we reach out to you for employment? Now, do you mean in like job opportunities that we know about in the industry? Um, I would say that our main, I don't know if this will answer your question, but one of our main kind of job boards that we tap into is Select Leaders. So I would recommend checking out Select Leaders job board, and that will bring up similar results to what we have available, to what we know is going on in our network. But we sometimes also get um, direct opportunities sent to us from our friends in the industry, and we will send those directly to Goldie Scholars as they're applicable. All right. So I'm gonna go to a question I get frequently, which is like, what's the typical scholar like? I'm gonna tilt my camera up. You can see like I'm surrounded by their headshots. If you ever come to my office, it's filled with Goldie Scholar headshots. And there are some common threads for sure, but I'll also say that there's so many unique backgrounds, so many sub-industries, so many paths that Goldie Scholars are on. A lot of people go back to grad school because they're on an atypical path or because they're trying to pivot. So people pivot from all kinds of industries. But what I would say some common threads are promising student, strong academic performance, effective written and oral communication, clear passion to be a leader in the industry. Leadership is huge with us, and just the potential of being a leader, and showing that. A Next, I'd say is a desire to learn from a mentor, indicating that you're willing to put in the time with a mentor is huge. And being assertive when it comes to being a mentee. Willing to share about yourself, it's kind of like we gain so much from sharing with each other and supporting each other. And then showing effort to participate in programming. We know not everybody is going to make everything all the time, but we really try to find people who are interested in attending our leadership, our networking, our mentoring. There's a lot of ways to get involved. Again, you don't have to do everything, but having that effort overall to participate goes a long way. Some other participation requirements. We used to have like a GPA requirement when I first started a long time ago, but now we need you to stay in good standing with your university. You need to be continuously enrolled in your degree program. Like I said, effort to attend Gold Initiative events, and then attendance at the Goldie Gala this year. It's on September 18th, 2025. Um, and my asterisk here says that travel expenses are covered by the Goldie Initiative. So if you're in New York, Boston, um, actually, while I have you on that topic, if everyone could put in the chat where they're dialing in from, so I can kind of get an understanding of our spread of East Coasters to Chicagoans, maybe. Um, Yep, this looks about right. So if you're coming from, oh, London, cool. Um, if you're coming from DC and New York, Boston, anywhere on the East Coast, I mean, from anywhere really, but most of you will be on the East Coast. We cover flights and Ubers to the Goldie Gala. So hopefully that wouldn't stop you from that wouldn't be a barrier for you to attend. Um, and it's a wonderful time. So, with all that being said, um, I will move on to what I'm sure a lot of you have questions about or have thought about, um, is the application itself. How do you apply? Seems great. Everyone wants a mentor, everyone wants a scholarship, but like, how do you actually apply? So, hopefully, many of you have already checked out the application, which is live. It's on our website. Um, I think it's just goldinitiative.org/scholarship. Um, and so the application form itself, you have to fill out. Within that, you have to submit three professional slash or academic letters of reference. You don't have to hit submit on like you can, I'm sorry, let me say that again. Your recommenders can email me directly or mail it if they really want to. We will take recommendation letters in any way, whatever is most comfortable for your recommenders, but you do need three of them from the professional world and or academic. We do recommend that you get one from your current employer, so that shows like a view of support. We also, I also know that many of you might be transitioning to grad school or you don't have a good relationship with your direct manager, whatever it might be. I do recommend adding, there's an option to add a note that says, "Hi, I'm leaving my job soon, and or like I just got a new boss, they don't know me that well," or whatever it might be. Any note that explains why you might not have a letter of rec from your direct manager. Um, is it Megan or Mega? Feel free to go.
Hi, sorry, it's Mega. Sorry, I can't turn my camera on, but I just had a question on recommenders. So my manager, I think, has already sent a
Mm.
recommendation in, but how can we like check that it's been received?
Hmm.
Because I'm also waiting for another one, and I don't know whether they've sent it or not. Because there's just like less of communication with that person.
Hmm. That's a really great question. Because it can be tough. I would say before I answer that, in general, if you haven't started asking for your letters of rec, I would do so now. Because it can take people some time to respond to you, and if they're busy, it can just be like a little bit time intensive. Um, Unfortunately, as of this year, um, it's still kind of manual. So you would have to email me and check in, and I would have to give you an update. So you can check in with me, I'd say leading up to June 1st, once a week. I'm happy to answer questions and getting closer to the date if you want to pester me more, that's okay too. Um, or if you've heard that they sent them, then I can check just to make sure that they did, that I've received that. There is if you need more assistance with that, you just let me know one-on-one and we'll make sure to note it and figure out anything we need to when it comes to getting those in as on time as they can be. I might give a little bit of grace depending on the situation. Okay, Portia?
Hello. Quick question. I am going into my second year in grad school, so I haven't been like officially employed since
Mm.
starting school, and I won't be starting my internship until June after the applications are due. So, is it recommended that I try to get a letter of recommendation from my employer before I started grad school?
No, I think any previous managers are good, so they can say, "Oh, I directed Portia directly and she was wonderful." Um, if you don't have a current job like on your resume, you're a full-time student, then don't worry about trying to fulfill that recommended manager's letter. People will be able to see clearly that from your resume and the application itself that you're not employed, you're going to school full-time, and therefore you don't have a manager. But any managers from the past, I think, are great.
Okay.
I also would say other general advice on recommenders is um, sometimes I joke like that hopefully the person that would write the best recommendation in the world is your mom, but she's your mom. And on the other end is like the CEO of a giant real estate company that met you one time and they write a sentence. So you have like a title and a good real estate company, but they're not writing anything about you. So you have to kind of make that judgment call if you have multiple options of, it does help to have real estate people if they have a good title, if they have a good company that can be a positive influence for somebody who's reading it, especially if they're talking about your skills within real estate, talking about your leadership skills, any of all of the above are generally positive.
Okay.
Tiffany.
I'm in a similar situation as Portia. Would you consider a recommendation if it was from like a mentor or a peer that's also in grad school with you, but
Mm,
is still a student?
hmm Um, I don't think it should stop you from applying. Like if you don't have three out of the park home run letters of rec, you should still apply. There's not one thing that will, you know, sink or swim any application. I do think that having more of like a peer can ding a bit. I guess it doesn't score necessarily as high sometimes. Um, Sometimes people ask me like, "Oh, I know a Goldie alumna. Wouldn't it be great if, she could write me a letter of rec?" And it's still more of like a peer mentor versus having a managers or professors write letters of rec for you. That being said, if you're saying that they're also like a mentor, then maybe what they're writing is incredible and they know you and they know your struggles and they can write to what makes you stand out from everybody else. And so then it would be valuable in that way, but maybe not as valuable as like a manager.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Okay, I am gonna read some questions from the chat. Still waiting on the results from my grad school applications. I believe I'll have decisions before the application is due, but it's possible to submit an application before confirming which school plan to go to. Um, yeah, it is possible. I think if you can wait, it would be helpful. Selfishly, it would be helpful to me personally because then I wouldn't have to go in and update all your files to say what university you're at. But you do need to know by June 1st, I'd say for sure. Um, And there are some questions in the application of like, who is your main contact at grad school? What's their email and contact information? And that's just for us to build relationships with the universities you're at. It's not for us to like reach out to them and ask what kind of student you are. It's just for our own contacts. So it is technically possible to submit, I think. I don't know, I don't remember what's mandatory off the top of my head, but I would prefer if you are going to find out before the deadline, just wait to submit it. There's no real benefit to submitting early, um, besides again making my life a little easier because then I know how many people are applying. Um, Next question. I have a graduate degree, PhD from a U.S. institution, and my undergrad is from overseas. Would official transcript for the grad school suffice? Official transcript for grad school would be great. I would be fine with unofficial transcripts from undergrad. It's my preference to have official, but I know that getting official transcripts is sometimes a pain in the you know what. Sometimes it's expensive, sometimes it's in another language, sometimes, it's just a lot. So I'm fine with unofficial for undergrad. If it is in another language or if there is another GPA system, then I would ask if sometimes they make like a 10 in this is a 4.0 in the United States. Sometimes they make kind of like translations. So it'd be helpful if we had a general idea of what your GPA was in undergrad if it's on a different scoring scale. All right, next question. I am making a career switch to CRE and urban design from communication marketing. I don't have any previous experience in CRE. Does this make me ineligible? I don't think it makes you ineligible. I think it probably makes it just a harder sell. You would have to have something to say, you know, like why are you going into commercial real estate and like why are you going into urban design? Like something must have brought you here today. And like to go to your grad program and like what was it that is motivating you to make this switch? Are you involved in volunteer organizations? Have you been starting going to networking events? Like what is it that, gets you there? Thinking about other experiences you've had that could show like your commitment to commercial real estate, because really what we're looking for is a commitment to CRE. So it's not un unimaginable. We've taken many students who go straight from undergrad to graduate school, so they don't have a lot of experience either, but it's kind of just like selling their story, selling their position, and sometimes it works out. I would say it is generally harder to do though versus other people who have 10 years of experience, which isn't always common, but they very clearly are in the industry and they're gonna stay there. Like, are you also going to stay in the industry? Like trying to convince people of that. Or that can come off in your letters of rec, in your essays, use those things to show what you are gonna do. Um, okay. I will go to the person, oh my gosh, Maniza.
Yes, thank you so much for giving me the opportunity that I bring my question. I do have two reference from my direct instructor or professor that I'm currently enrolled in these classes. But the third reference is from 2021 when I was volunteer with the refugee resettlement agencies in one of the camps. I put that one as a third reference. I'm not sure if I can go with this reference or I should change it or how can I do that?
Yeah, yeah. Let me see if this answers your question, but you bring up a really good point that sometimes I forget to say, which I do not recommend like just reusing letters of rec from your previous experiences. Like I'm sure you had a letter of rec to get into grad school. Some people will just like take that PDF and attach it to the Gold Initiative and it'll say, to whom it may concern at University of Wisconsin-Madison, I think Kelsey is going to be really great. And so we know it wasn't written for us. It just puts a bad taste in some reviewers' mouth that, everyone else got letters of rec for this specific program. I know it's a lot more work. I'm sure you have the letters of rec already. Um, so there's that. But I don't think there's anything wrong with, taking letters and adjusting them for the Gold Initiative, especially if you can, just message. I think for most of my contacts, like I could message them and be like, hi, nice to, hear from you again. I would like to update the letter of recommendation you wrote for me 6 years ago, but with addressing the correct people, mention, and updating it with their consent. That's one way to go about it. Like I said before, I don't think that should stop you though from applying. Like one letter of rec that, is mislabeled, won't sink or swim your whole application. Um, but if you could get the recommender to update it slightly with things about leadership and real estate in particular, that goes a long way.
Yeah, but the problem is I don't have uh, contact with this person anymore, or maybe I need to add a new one. Not sure about that.
Yeah, like I think that's an okay plan B, but if you could think of anybody else who could write you a letter, I would probably do that. But maybe we can talk offline and I could kind of look a little bit closer into your example so I can understand it better. Does that sound good? Okay. Um, okay, I'm gonna go back to my list of questions. So thanks for all hanging with me here. Let's see, where did I leave off? Um, As an international applicant, how can I confirm that my bachelor's degree meets the academic eligibility requirements for the Goldie Scholarship? There's not necessarily academic eligibility requirements. We require graduating from a bachelor's, an accredited bachelor's program. So you can ask me offline if you have a specific example that you think might not qualify. But if you got your bachelor's degree overseas, um, that should be totally fine. Like I said, I think it's helpful if you have a translation for what the GPAs mean from other countries to the United States 4.0 scale. But I think that should be fine. Um, but you can message me and be like, "Hey, this is the situation. Would this work?" Um, I have a World Education Services evaluation for my undergrad. Can I submit that in place of an official transcript? I'm sorry, I'm not familiar with WES off the top of my head. I assume I probably have received one of those before. But I would ask a favor of you and just email me and ask me that so I can see it firsthand. But my guess would be yes. Um, yeah, I'm sure it'll be fine. What would make you deny admission? So I don't think I go through this in the survey. Yeah. So let me just give you an overview of the what happens after you hit submit. I think someone else is asking about this too. So after you hit submit, I like Sunday night, I wake up Sunday morning and I see how many applications have come in. I'm going to guess 100 of you are going to apply. Um, I will look through it. We have an intern this summer as well, and my colleague Kate Meany on the call will be helping, or the two of us will be helping each other. Um, the first kind of filter is going through for just that hard eligibility. So, do you live in one of those states that I mentioned earlier? Are you in graduate school? Sometimes you'll get an undergrad, whatever it might be. So, there are some like hard bounces just based on like you're not eligible based on our criteria, our high level criteria. From there, your application gets put in a nice package and is read 4 times by 4 different people. Um, and there's a rubric with that. So that those pre-screeners, the pre-screener group in June will be reading applications. Um, they will be looking at everything written. Though that group is comprised of previous Goldie mentors, Goldie alumni, board members, high touch volunteers, special sponsors, lots of like people who are very invested in our mission, and they want to give back, and this is a great way to do it. Um, and so that will help us narrow down the pool with these rubrics, like basically each part of the application, the 3 layers of rec, the 3 essays, the application itself, etc., is all score, has its own score and weighted. I can tell you that the highest weight is going to be like commitment to commercial real estate and like leadership potential, basically. And I'm not giving away any industry secrets. The name of our game, commercial real estate, leadership, networking, giving back, all these things will go into good scores. From there, we will, like I said, narrow it down. Unfortunately, not everyone can get to the interview phase. So in the second half of July, we will do about 50 Zoom interviews. So we might go from 100 to 50, depending on how many apply. And again, in those interviews, there'll be 4 volunteers, mentors, board members, alumni, whoever it might be. They're panel interviews. So each they'll be with 4 people. Everybody asks the same question. Everyone else in this call will get the same question. Um, and hmm, and yeah, from there we'll narrow it down. I am embarrassed because I can't remember off the top of my head how many we're accepting. I think it's 26 or 28 new students this year, something like that. Um, but it's getting more and more competitive, as you can tell by the math, from when I first started. So that shows a little bit of the process of for us. Mega?
Hi,
Mega?
sorry, just a question on the interviews.
Mhm.
And so it's 4 panelists, and how many questions will there be? And are we able to have a bit more insight on what the interview will entail?
So each panelist will ask a question. I'm usually in there, I might like kick it off. I can tell you that you get one question ahead of time, which is like your 2 to 3 minute elevator pitch, like just when you get to an interview and someone's like, okay, tell me about yourself, and so you will get prepped for that question ahead of time. So you'll start the interview after we all do introductions with just a 3 minute summary of where you're from, who you are, where you're going, and that you're excited and grateful to be interviewed or whatever you want to say. From there, we'll go around, in a virtual circle where we ask questions about your experience in commercial real estate. It might be about mentorship, it might be about networking, thinking about experiences that exemplify the stuff that I have been talking about today. We're looking for examples of strong leaders. We believe that, previous experience will indicate future performance. So that's kind of what we go off of. Um, we leave room for questions at the end, but it takes about 20 minutes altogether. Um, Again, there's a rubric for that, so you'll kind of be, scored on each question, but they're not very difficult questions. It's just about you being able to articulate your goals in commercial real estate, your story, what makes you a good leader, what makes you stand out, why, you're awesome. I'd say most Goldie scholars have some imposter syndrome. So if you're having imposter syndrome right now, that's okay. Like, let me just be your cheerleader now that you're doing great, whether you apply or don't, whether you get it or don't, you're doing awesome. You're gonna have it's gonna be fine. Just have the confidence, shoot for the moon, and have fun with it along the way, and it'll be fine. So I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, it does. Thank you.
No problem. Um, okay, let's see. Go back to my list of questions. Do recommendation letters have to come directly from the person's email? No, they could. One way to do it is if your recommenders send you the letter, you can upload it yourself with your application. That's one way to do it. You can email it to me if somebody like says, "Hey, I wrote you your letter. Here you go." Then it's on you to get it to me. Either you can attach it to the application or email it to me directly. Um, Letters of rec. I have professors that have been real estate industry as well as other fields. Should academic relations be mostly in real estate field, or is it better to mix fields in my recommendations? I would I would recommend real estate. Generally, if you have the choice between a professor in real estate and a professor in a different industry, I would lean towards real estate. Okay. What is school's eligibility part-time, full-time? We have both part-time and full-time students, so you can be going to school part-time or full-time. Um, when it comes to highly transferable skills for Siri, would you recommend focusing on that primarily in essays, or is there another part of the application we should emphasize these skills? Um, if you can swing it, you could talk to your recommenders and just tell them, hey, I'm going to grad school. I'm pivoting a bit. I'm applying for um, this program, this Goldie Scholar program. And in the letter, I'd like for you to highlight these things about me or the time that I did XYZ, and just like think about the transferable skills that you might have, whether you're like the best networker, you're good at relationship building, you know, you have the financial skills that will translate, or you have the drive, whatever it might be. Like you could have that come up in your letters of rec. You could have it in your essays, like you said. Um, and you could maybe weave it a little bit into your resume, you know, like um, some people, you could put transferable skills on your resume. I mean, why not? I don't know. But I think those would be the main thing. And trying to do that as much as you can to get to the interview phase, because once you're in the interview, then you can explain it yourself. Um, but until then, you just have the essays and the letters of rec to really share your story. Okay, if I plan to move to one of the eligible states and begin my graduate studies fall 2025, but I'm submitting an application before reclaim, will I still be eligible? Yes. If you are starting your studies in September, August, September, and you're moving to New York, Boston, Chicago, wherever in September, August, whatever, you're eligible. You don't have to like be living there when on June 1st, basically. All right, Karen Garcia.
Hi, thank you. Regarding the letters of recommendation, I would like to ask if or how important is to have an academic reference there, or is it enough having only employers' letter of recommendations?
Yeah, I think it's great to have employers. I think I would lean more towards employers. If I had to pick between employers and professors, I would generally lean towards employers as they get to work with you more closely. If you have a really great professor, if the professor's in real estate, if you like worked, if you did research for them, or if they just know you particularly well, and they're in a relevant background, or they used to work in real estate, or whatever it might be, then those can be great as well. Obviously, you have three opportunities, three letters, so people can come from different backgrounds. But yeah, I would say you definitely do not have to have a professor. That's not mandatory.
Great. And do they need to send the letter or only like, or should we only upload the letter in a PDF there?
They can send a letter. They can do any of the above. They can mail it if it's a little old school, but if they you know, want to mail it, they can do that. Many people email it to me. It's most convenient to me personally if you attach it in the application because then I don't have to attach it manually. It's just automatically attached in your submission. Don't, you know, kill yourself trying to make that happen. Like anybody, you know, you can email me, they can email me, they can mail me. It's very flexible on how those letters get to me. It's just hopefully it's done before June 1st is the goal.
All right, thank you.
Okay. Let me look back. So one thing that's different this year, just FYI, some insider scoop that you get for attending the session. We changed it from 2 essays to 3 essays, but in exchange for a third essay, they're much shorter now. So all the essays are max 250. Um, I'd be interested to hear if, as you're doing it, if anyone's like, this is not enough words. I'd love to hear any kind of feedback, but we're hoping that by reducing the words, that it's less fluffy, you know, like it's not like you threw it into ChatGPT and it like auto-generated a bunch of fluff. Like you can get to the point very quickly. And that's what our reviewers want. They don't want to read tons of stuff. They want to know you. They want to know your point, your purpose quickly. They'll be reading a lot of applications. So I think it's okay to be direct. You just don't have that many words to do it in, right? So you kind of have to be. Um, so there's that. I'm going to re-add, I mentioned it briefly earlier, but there is a area that says um, like note on academic or professional performance or something like that. That is for, let's say you had to become a full-time caregiver for your parents when you were undergrad and your grades took a dive because you were a caregiver. This would be a great opportunity to say, oh, I had just one or two lines explaining any sort of lapse in your professional career or in your previous grades. Again, just one or two lines that I'd be like, oh, then we'll dismiss any questions we have about that. There are areas to add additional attachments. Those are very, very optional. If you want to include something else that you think we should see, you can do that. Um, yeah, I really recommend you like filling out those sections about memberships or volunteer award, like anything that says that you're involved, anything that says that, you put yourself out there and you go to networking events or you help other people or whatever it might be, I think can really help your application overall. And yeah, everything's announced by August 15th at the very latest. Otherwise, um, yeah. Yeah, so many awesome questions. I'm gonna check to see if I missed any, but if does anyone else have questions? Oh, I see one here. Coming on the F1 visa, non-US citizens are eligible. Um, so if you are not a US citizen, you are welcome to apply. That it does not cut you out of eligibility. I will say that, we are looking for also good alumni in the future too. So to be a good alumni, it's easier when you're in the location that we're, hoping that we are building a community in. So you could address that if you want. And your 5-year plan might be helpful if you're an international student, just to give us more context of like what you're thinking long term, because we want to invest in people that will invest in us as well in the future, to have a really good alumni system. Okay, Karen, go to you first.
Yes, sorry again. I was awarded with another scholarship, and they told me that the scholarships may have to pay taxes on that.
Mm,
I, I was curious about this with this scholarship.
that is a great question, Karen. Can I get back to you on that? I really don't want to like tell you the wrong thing.
You
Yes.
might want to check with an accountant, Karen,
All right.
Yeah, yeah.
because
Um,
you may have other factors involved that, are specific to your financial situation.
All right.
yeah, I not to totally cop out, Karen, but I would hate to give you the wrong information um on that. So hopefully someone with more experience in that area can help you
Oh,
and you can share with me and I can help the next person if I can, but I try not to um say the wrong thing when it comes to taxes.
thanks. And another question. Is this a scholarship in the case of being awarded? Do you do a deposit to our accounts, or do you have to pay to the university?
Yeah, that's a great question. The scholarship is sent twice a year, twice, if you're in it for 2 years, it goes straight to the university. We have never paid students directly. So it would go either sometimes by check, sometimes we go in as a third party payer. Each university is honestly kind of quirky and they have their own portals and systems and rules. So we follow those, but we always send it to the university directly.
All right, thanks.
Um, let's go to Tiffany.
I have a quick administrative question. So I'm looking at the application online and I see a line item that says graduate school contact email and phone number. Is that someone at my school or who is
Yeah, so
that?
if you um have like a program advisor that you've been working with or anybody that's been, you know, telling you when or and how to apply, any contact you have, um, that's just for us to expand our own uh relationships with your university. Um, but it could be if you don't have somebody, you could just find like a general contact info box. That you can fill it in. It's not like graded in your application, if that makes sense.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Yeah. Mega?
Thank you. Sorry for all the questions. It relates to the question about being global and international. I was just wondering in terms of Goldie's like long-term goals, do you
Mm.
have ambitions to go global? For example, like coming from London, I recently met another ex-Goldie scholar who's in London.
Sophie?
Um,
I know. It has to be Sophie, right? Or
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Yeah, so we recently met and I was just trying to understand. I wanted to like one option in my essay was to write about, expanding globally and expanding
Mm.
Goldie to London. But I wondered whether that was actually what your goals are and whether that's worth writing about if that's not your goals.
I would maybe avoid writing about it. I understand,
Yeah.
but not everyone who reads it might understand. To give you more context, we have been in Chicago, 2007 to like 2020, so most of our lifetime. Um, and then we just started experimenting with a couple people here and there from the East Coast or other areas of the United States. And we decided to restrict eligibility just to people living in the Midwest and Northeast because our strategic plan is to build up our in-person resources, mentoring pool, volunteers. Maybe we do our own fundraiser in the Northeast, like just creating more opportunities for the Goldie Scholars that are already in the Northeast. Um, yeah. So our focus is entirely, and we're just at the kind of at the beginning of that. So any sort of expansion would be within the rest of the United States before we go internationally. Now, if
Okay.
you, there's no reason not to talk about meeting a Goldie Scholar in London and like just talking. You could mention how the the Gold Initiative reach is international because it is. It's just very few and far between. There's only so many people, but maybe one day, just I wouldn't say in the foreseeable future. So I wouldn't like
Okay.
put that as a selling point for yourself.
But we can mention like STEM visa and that helping us to be, in the short term in the area.
Yes, I think any
Okay.
explanation of like your plans or desire to stay in the United States after graduation and the STEM visas are great because you get 3 years if we're talking about the same thing instead of just the one
Yeah.
or 2 years. So that gives you much more of a foothold in the United States and potentially could, keep you here even longer if you end up wanting to. It's can be tough because, we want people to stay and to be good alumni and all that stuff. But you're in grad school, you're at a very kind of like pivotal point in your life most of the time, especially with the visa situation. Like if you stay for 3 years, like who knows what's going to happen in 3 years? I have no idea.
Yeah.
So, I would just like do the crystal ball for them of being like, this is where I think I'm going to go. This is where I want to go. My dreams are big in commercial real estate. I want to do X, Y, Z. And, that's what will happen.
Okay. Thank you.
Hmm. Okay, I see we have a 5-minute warning for the end of this call. Uh, I have a question that says, does scholarship only cover tuition or living costs as well? The scholarship money goes directly to your university, so whatever you can pay for within your university portal is fine by us. Like once it goes to your university, you have that in your like university account if it that helps you with a um, study abroad or with books or whatever it might be. that's totally fine. But I don't know if they ever usually cover living costs. I don't know. It would have to be on like a school by school basis, but we don't cover living costs in general. Do you require submission of community college transcripts as well as undergrad? Generally, your like college university transcripts suffice. Um, you can do both. I get both a lot. Um, but if usually your final college will have like your GPA from your uh transfer school, so I think that will cover it. But to cover your bases, you could definitely do both. Another question I get sometimes is, do I need to, I'm in graduate school, I've been in for a year, a quarter, a semester, whatever, do I need to submit that? It's optional. It's optional to submit your graduate school degree if you have grades to show. I say if you're doing really well in grad school, if you have straight A's and a B or whatever, why not? If you're not doing so well, maybe don't include your graduate school degrees. Some schools curve really hard and if you're at University of Chicago, it's like crazy hard with the curve and only like one person gets an A. I don't know, but then I wouldn't include it personally. It's very optional. But yeah. All right, any final burning questions for the group here? I am always an email away. There was some people I said to follow up with me with their specific situations outside. I will say I am getting married on Saturday, so I'm about to be on PTO for 4 days, and in June I will be on a honeymoon. So just FYI, if you get, thank you everyone. If you get my out of office, there will be information of who to contact. Otherwise, I will answer your questions on Tuesday. Thank you. Thank you, everyone. I appreciate it. And yeah, I'm always email away. I'm always happy to call. I'll be sending reminders. And yeah, until then, I hope to read your applications on June 2nd. Thank you, everybody. Oh, you're all so nice.